All right, my friends, we're going to look at this paper from Larry Kotlikoff and Larry Summers from 1981, I believe, from the NBER, the National Bureau of Economic Research, and share with you some tidbits that fascinate me, actually. And I just talked about this in a video I did when I was coming from dropping one of my kids off from school. So here goes. The Adequacy, NBER Working Paper Series, The Adequacy of Savings by Kotlikoff and Summers. Working paper number 627. It's 1981, February 1981. So Reagan literally had just taken office. He'd only been in office for a month. I mean, this is if you like history and you like economics, it's just this stuff, man. And it's I love it, man. There's no other way around. This stuff excites me for sure. And I'm going to share with you some other stuff that excites me as well. All right, so the research reported here is part of the NBER's research program in social insurance and research projects. Any opinions do not, okay, we get all that. All right, so here. The adequacy of savings. The paper uses newly available data from the Social Security Retirement History Survey that might be the predecessor to the HRS, the Health Retirement Survey. I don't know about the BLS. I'm not sure what succeeded this, but the Social Security had its Retirement History Survey, RHS, back in the old days, to examine the adequacy of savings. This data source is particularly rich. Survey data respondents covering 6 years have been matched with Social Security earnings records covering years back, dated back 25 years. In addition to information on the path of lifetime earnings, the survey contains extensive data on asset holdings as well. All right. The results. Let me highlight. The results indicate that only a very small minority of couples face significant reductions in their standard of living during old age. This appears to be large part due to compulsory savings institutions such as Social Security and pensions. If Social Security were eliminated and not replaced by private accumulation, a large fraction of the aged population would face a very sharp decline in living standards. Econometric evidence presented in the final section of this paper indicates that persons receiving more Social Security benefits have relatively higher level of sustainable consumption at retirement. This is back from 1981. Nuts. All right, let's keep going. Central to the this is interesting. The central to the formulation of public policy towards Social Security and private pensions is the question: how adequately do people save for their old age? The widely accepted life cycle and permanent income hypothesis of savings presume that individuals plan their consumption path over their lifetimes in a way that maximizes their satisfaction. That'd be the rational thought of economics, and it's not in terms of how do you define rationality? I mean, literally, how do you define rationality? Is it rational to pay $5 for Starbucks when I can pay 50 cents for my dark roast from Walmart? It's not rational from a pure economic perspective, but it's certainly rational from a pleasurable perspective. If I get pleasure from the Starbucks $5 coffee, and I don't get pleasure from this, you can't quantify that. But there is some rational behavior that needs to be imputed in there that you can't. There's no economics can do that. Public policy, this is interesting. I wish you could highlight, but public policy regarding financing of old age consumption is based on a different view. The essential premise underlying the Social Security system, as well as government tax breaks for private pensions, is that left to their own devices, large number of people would fail to save adequately and find themselves destitute in old age. Man, I 100% agree with that, which is why Social Security plays such a wonderful role. I mean, I'm telling you right now. But it's taxing, but it's not voluntary. No, I get it. I 100% get it. In terms of complete voluntarism, you're never going to get that, ever. So what do? Is you have to put some kind of compulsory savings plan in place so that people will make sure they're not destitute. And the reason for that is because we don't want people later on down the road having to go to the public dole and say, hey, I need money because I didn't save anything. We want them to be able to save for themselves right out of the gate by being forced compulsory savings, which is what Social Security is. While our Social Security and private pension systems perform a fair number of functions in the area of income redistribution and insurance, their primary function is to force individuals to save for their old age. This has a potentially important virtue of avoiding their turning to general welfare for assistance, as well as preventing personal suffering. To date, very little data, empirical work, empirical is observed, has directly addressed the question of adequacy and accumulation. In the first systematic study of this problem, Peter Diamond in 1977 concluded that in the absence of Social Security, a substantial fraction of the population would be inadequately prepared for retirement. Carter's interim report on the President's Commission on Pension Policy reached a similar conclusion. Yep. Yeah, man, I 100% agree with that. All right, so let's keep going down. I want to show you a couple of things. All right. There are several possible rationales for public intervention in private savings decisions. Paternalism may be appropriate in this context, even if not in other static situations. Decisions about retirement savings are unique in their irreversibility. An individual cannot retrospectively enjoy his wealth, nor can he undo his previous consumption. The problem of irreversibility is heightened by the likelihood of changing taste. The saver may well have different goals, tastes, and desires when he retires than when he than at the time that the savings decisions was made. Man, I just 100% agree. That's the thing I love about economics. It makes so much sense when done in a way that people can understand, as opposed to economic metrics, which is basically trying to make it a science, a hard science like physics. All right, well, let me just pause a second here. Actually interesting too. Let's see. These two measures of lifetime and old age resources are both potentially biased because they fail to account for inheritance as well as contributions from children, items that are quite poorly reported in the survey. And that would be the Social Security retirement something survey that they did that we talked about. To the extent that these inheritances and contributions from children have occurred prior to the respondents attaining retirement age, the estimate of lifetime resources will be undermeasured, while the estimate of future resources is correct. If, on the other hand, such family transfers primarily arrive in the future, both future and lifetime resources will be undermeasured. I got to talk on this. Actually, let me just read this a little bit more. The former case is the more problematic for our state estimate of the ratio of old age to retirement sustainable consumption, since the omission of pre-retirement transfers in the lifetime resources calculation will bias upward the computed ratio of sustainable old age consumption to sustainable lifetime consumption. However, the potential. All right. So anyway, what I want to show is we get tons and tons of literature that talks about the huge amount of money that baby boomers have, which are going to transfer to, or not baby boomers, the baby boomers' parents have, which are going to transfer to baby boomers and then downstream. Huge, I think it's like trillions of dollars. All these financial planning institutions and financial advisory firms, like, you got to get the kids because the kids are going to inherit this huge amount of wealth. But how do you actually discount that in terms of your ability to consume your comfortable level of retirement? I don't know. In fact, Kotlikoff even addressed that here in 1981. Says, look, we don't know how to address potential inheritances for your current situation, your boots on the ground, relative to your ability to retire safely. And when I say safely, I mean the level of consumption that you anticipate. And I think that's interesting. So we're biasing it downward, saying, look, it makes it even worse. It's going to look even worse than it might actually be, because we don't know how to account for that. Like, for instance, Grandma Jones dies as a $2 million account. How do you attribute that to, Susan Jones, who doesn't look like she has enough money to live on? I don't know. But Susan knows in her head, well, when grandma or mom dies, I could have some inheritance. And I've done financial planning a lot where people say, yeah, we expect an inheritance. We don't expect it. Not like, I expect my mom to get, no, not like that. But I hear all the time, there could be an inheritance, but I don't want to use that in my planning. That's a great scenario. And it's a cherry icing on the cake for sure. But how does that get related to financial planning info that says when mom dies, she's going to have a $400,000 house that's got to be liquidated? How does that relate back to me? I mean, that's a challenge. But again, reporting, maybe underrepresenting of your ability for sustainable retirement and not being able to use inheritances is a big deal, I think. But I don't know how you account for that. And Larry talks about that here too. All right. So let's see here. I want to talk about, we don't want to go to pensions, lifetime earnings. That can be thought of as a, okay. In this context, family transfer payments can be thought of as a bonus, actually. For the purpose of this study, the appropriate lifetime resources base to consider can be thought of as excluding family